Tonight, before you go to sleep, go outside and look up. You'll probably see a few stars, maybe a planet, maybe nothing at all. For most of human history, that would have been impossible. Your ancestors lived beneath a sky so crowded with stars that the Milky Way wasn't something you traveled hours to see. It was just the sky. And the strange thing is that humans everywhere kept doing the same thing. The Greeks did it. The Chinese did it. The Maya did it. Ancient Australians did it. Civilizations separated by oceans looked at the same stars and somehow started seeing the same kinds of things. Hunters, animals, heroes, monsters, entire stories hidden among random points of light. Why? Because this isn't really a story about stars. It's a story about the human brain. Today, most people can name only a handful of constellations. Maybe Orion, maybe the Big Dipper. That's about it. For most of history, that would have been unusual. The night sky was one of the most important things a human being could know. It helped people travel. It helped people farm. It helped people tell time. And in some cases, it helped entire civilizations survive. But it also looked completely different from the sky most of us see today. On a perfectly dark night, the human eye can see roughly 5,000 stars. Today, more than a third of humanity can't see the Milky Way at all because of light pollution. For your ancestors, that glowing band across the sky was impossible to ignore. Some cultures described it as a river. Others called it a road. Others believed it was a bridge used by souls after death. Nobody knew what it actually was, but everyone agreed it was important. And ancient skies may have looked far more dramatic than most modern people can imagine. Today, cities brighten the night. For your ancestors, darkness was actually dark. The Milky Way stretched from one side of the sky to the other, a giant glowing band hanging overhead every single night. Most people alive today have never seen the sky the way their ancestors saw it. Then humans started doing something even stranger. They began finding shapes in it. A hunter, a bear, a scorpion, a giant bird, a dragon. Scientists have a name for this. Pareidolia, the tendency to find patterns where none exist. It's why people see faces in clouds, shapes in rock formations, and apparently entire civilizations in the stars. But here's where things get weird. One tiny cluster of stars called the Pleiades appears in stories all over the world. The ancient Greeks built myths around it. The Japanese called it Subaru. It appears in Hindu traditions, Maya traditions, and Aboriginal Australian stories. People separated by entire oceans somehow became fascinated by the same handful of stars. And the Pleiades aren't the only example. Researchers have noticed something strange. Cultures all over the world kept seeing similar things in the sky. Hunters, warriors, animals, powerful ancestors. Not the same stories, but the same ideas. The ancient Greeks saw Orion. Other cultures saw different figures in the same region of the sky. Humans kept turning random stars into people, which tells us something important. The stories weren't coming from the stars, they were coming from us. But stars weren't just stories, they were survival. Long before GPS existed, Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using nothing but the sky. No compass, no maps, no satellites. Some memorized the rising and setting positions of more than 200 stars. Imagine standing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, water in every direction, no landmarks, no signs, and somehow knowing exactly where you're going. The stars were their map. In fact, early European explorers were often amazed by Polynesian navigation. From the outside, it looked impossible. A canoe leaves one island, travels thousands of miles across open ocean, then arrives exactly where it intended to go, again and again, generation after generation. The stars weren't decoration, they were technology. In ancient Egypt, they were something else, a calendar. One star in particular became incredibly important, Sirius. Every year, its appearance in the morning sky roughly matched the flooding of the Nile, and the Nile flood determined whether crops would grow, which meant a single star could influence whether millions of people ate. The sky wasn't decoration, it was infrastructure, and Egypt wasn't unique. Ancient farmers all over the world watched the sky carefully. Plant too early and crops could fail. Plant too late and crops could fail. The stars became a giant calendar hanging above everyone's head. Long before clocks, long before calendars, long before weather forecasts, people looked up and made decisions that affected entire communities. Stars also gave people something else, a way to predict the future, or at least they thought so. Kings consulted astronomers before battles. Rulers delayed important decisions because of celestial events. Entire kingdoms changed plans because of something happening overhead. Today, most people check the weather before leaving home. For thousands of years, people checked the sky for completely different reasons. But ancient people weren't only paying attention to stars. Some cultures focused on the darkness between them. This may be one of the strangest constellations ever created. Many Aboriginal Australian groups saw a giant emu stretching across the Milky Way. Not made from stars, made from the dark patches between them. Most people looked at the bright parts. They looked at the shadows and somehow saw an animal. And there are constellations we've completely forgotten. Ancient sky maps included figures that no longer exist today. Over the centuries, humans kept redrawing the heavens, adding shapes, removing shapes, renaming stars, which means constellations aren't really discoveries. They're stories, and stories change. The deeper you go into ancient astronomy, the more surprising it becomes. The Babylonians tracked planetary motion thousands of years ago. The Maya built observatories and recorded celestial cycles with remarkable accuracy. Ancient astronomers predicted eclipses long before modern science existed, and eclipses terrified people. Imagine living thousands of years ago. The sun suddenly begins disappearing in the middle of the day. No warning, no explanation. Many cultures believed dragons were eating it. Others thought the gods were angry. And in 585 BC, a solar eclipse was so shocking that it reportedly stopped a war between the Medes and the Lydians. Two armies were fighting. The sky went dark, and they decided that was probably a sign to stop. But perhaps the strangest thing about the sky is that it isn't actually fixed. For thousands of years, humans assumed the stars never changed. They seemed permanent, eternal. They weren't. Earth slowly wobbles as it spins. One complete wobble takes around 26,000 years, which means the North Star changes over time. The star guiding ships today is not the same star that guided ancient Egyptians. Even the sky has a history. And then, in 1838, a German astronomer named Friedrich Bessel changed humanity's understanding of the universe forever. For the first time, he successfully measured the distance to a star. Humans finally learned that those lights overhead weren't nearby. They were unimaginably far away. The universe instantly became much larger than anyone had imagined. But perhaps the most remarkable fact is this. Some researchers believe the oldest continuously told stories on Earth may be stories about the sky. Aboriginal Australian oral traditions contain astronomical knowledge that could be thousands of years older than the pyramids, possibly older than writing itself. Think about that. A story survives, not for centuries, not for millennia, but for longer than entire civilizations, longer than kingdoms, longer than empires, all because people kept looking up and passing it to the next generation. And maybe that's why civilizations everywhere filled the heavens with stories, not because they were primitive, not because they were confused, but because humans are storytellers. Give us thousands of lights scattered across the darkness, and we'll start finding meaning. We've been doing it for thousands of years. The stars above ancient Egypt are still above you. The stars above Rome are still above you. The stars above the first cities, the first farmers, the first sailors, the first storytellers, they're still there. The difference is that they probably spent a lot more time looking at them than we do. And every time humans looked up, they saw something different. A map, a calendar, a warning, a god, a monster, a hero. But beneath all those stories was the same thing, a human being staring into the darkness and trying to understand their place in it. And that may be the oldest story of all.